What the hell? I'm tripping balls, man. Alright, I've just finished watching Mandy, the new film with Nicolas Cage. Whoa. This isn't just a film, this is an experience. This is a trip, literally, for a lot of the characters in the film, because there's a lot of LSD involved and a lot of scenes and colors that obviously represent or symbolize being on a trip or being on acid, as well as other things. This is one of those movies where there's a lot of symbolism, there's a lot of meaning behind the way scenes are shot. Unfortunately, you're not going to know everything the first time you watch this. It'll raise more questions than answers, and I think that's a good thing with films these days, especially something like this. This is kind of like a mixture of a grindhouse, Rob Zombie, psychedelic, art house type film, but it's easy to follow. There's nothing confusing about it. There's a lot. It flows very well. Each scene flows, and you're not left scratching your head. Really, you will be when it comes to symbolism and the meaning of certain things. But as far as the core of the story goes, it's very easy to follow. And what it's about is Red and his partner Mandy, who we assume are a married couple. They live a very peaceful existence in a quiet town, it would seem, somewhere nice and foresty. Red's a lumberjack, and Mandy spends most of her time drawing. She's into art and also reads a lot of books. And they generally keep to themselves. They're not hurting anyone, and I think they obviously like it that way. Unfortunately for them, a cult happens to be passing through town, and the leader of this cult sees Mandy and has an obsession with her immediately. And unfortunately, they destroy Red and Mandy's peaceful existence in their nice and quiet home. This leads to Red taking on a really violent, gruesome, gory, horrific revenge mission for what the cult has destroyed. Bill Duke, aka Mac from Predator, makes a guest appearance in this film. He helps out Red with some weaponry and stuff like that. And from then on in, it's just Red and his revenge mission. I can't really say much more than that. What I can say is the cult summons these demons at some stage, and it's not ruining the film because it happens quite early on. And if you've seen the trailer, you'll already see these Harley Davidson motorbike riding demons. It's kind of like the characters from Hellraiser on motorbikes. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? It is. And a lot of people say this movie is very slow burn. Like the first 35 minutes, not much is happening, but that's only for people that are used to really mainstream Hollywood type films where you need that action from start to finish. Like this isn't Fast and the Furious. This is a clever, super well made movie that's perfect the way that it is. You know, it's a 2-hour running time, almost on the dot 2 hours. I don't think it's slow burn at all. I think the beginning of the film is perfect. I wouldn't pace it any differently. I think it's necessary to get to know Red and definitely Mandy a lot better. And you definitely grow a connection with the characters and their peaceful existence and their loving happiness. You can just tell they're just so happy. Unfortunately, you can also feel that is going to get interrupted, which it does, like I mentioned. But it's not slow burn for me. It's perfectly paced, and there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you can divide it into threes, pretty much. First act, second act, third act. So first act, kind of getting to know the characters, or the main characters. Second act is their peaceful existence being destroyed, and you get to see the cult a little bit more. Third act, revenge, gore, and violence. And I can't really say much more than that because I'm not here to spoil the movie for people. I'm here just to tell you that it's a weird film. It's definitely strange. If you don't like the kind of sort of weird art housey, grindhouse type film, if you're not into horror as well, if you're not into gore, I wouldn't recommend this because all of that is in this. All of that is built into one. The story at the core is very easy to follow, so you're not going to struggle with that. However, there's a lot of meaning behind a lot of what happens, and you can tell that there is, but unfortunately, We're not going to know it all. And I think the director leaves it up to viewer interpretation anyway. Different parts are going to have different meanings for different people. It's as simple as that. So I can't wait to discuss it with you all. If you want to discuss it, let me know in the comments below what you all thought, and we can definitely talk about it there, or hit me up on Instagram. Make sure you guys add me on Instagram, and I'll be happy to discuss it there. I want to know what everyone thinks and what some of the symbolism means to them. So before I start talking about spoilers, which I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a good pre-warning if you haven't seen the movie, because you don't want it spoiled for you. Believe me, you don't. I'm going to give it a score. On the Bannock Evil scale of 13, this one, Mandy with Nicolas Cage, I have to give it a perfect 13. I cannot flaw the movie. It's definitely paced perfectly. The length, I think, is perfect. I wouldn't change anything in any way. It has an effective first, second, third act. If anything, I'd want it to go longer. I didn't want it to end. I wanted it to continue. But having said that, perfect length, perfect movie, perfect score. Go out and see this. If you're into that type of film, if you're into this type of psychedelic, art housey, weird type of movie and horror, go out and watch it. What are you waiting for? 13 out of 13, baby. Now on to the spoilers. I'm going to give you a few seconds to close the window down. Just close it, you know, click the X, close it. Don't listen, mute it, do whatever you got to do. You don't want to hear the spoilers if this is a film that I've convinced you that you need to see. So go watch it, and then you can come back and you can just listen to the spoilers and you can tell me what you think. So, Red is on a revenge mission. What happens during the destruction of their peaceful existence is they drug the hell out of Mandy. They not only drop acid into her eyes, but they also inject her with some sort of moth, or a moth's tail injects into her arm, and this is obviously some sort of poison or some sort of hallucinogenic effect. And we see it in the eyes of Mandy, and that's when she meets the cult leader, and she ends up laughing at the cult leader. He plays this weird folk music for her, and oh my god, there is full frontal male nudity in this. We see the cult leader's penis just hanging there, and Mandy just laughs at him. And obviously he feels the rejection and starts freaking out, telling everyone, don't laugh at me, don't look at me, don't laugh at me, don't look at me. And that's when things really go downhill for Red and Mandy. They end up tying up Red, stabbing him in his stomach or his side oblique, and then they bring out Mandy in a bag and set her on fire. They burn her to death into crisps, and then they leave, assuming that Red's probably going to die as well. Unfortunately for the cult, Red doesn't die. And not only does he not die, there's a really amazing scene following Mandy's death, after she's burnt to death, where he goes into the bathroom and has a stash of vodka. So obviously he's struggled with alcohol addiction in the past. You know, you don't keep a big 1 litre or whatever it is, maybe 2 litre bottle of vodka in your bathroom if you haven't had a problem before. It's obviously there in case he feels the need to get intoxicated for whatever reason. Obviously, like, alcoholics will hide the alcohol, but throughout the film, until that point, we're not led to believe that he's an alcoholic or anything like that. But obviously having a stash, I'm led to believe that he's had some past problems. So there's a really emotional scene, and Nicolas Cage does an awesome job. We all know that he's kind of struggled when it comes to screaming, and sometimes overacts in other movies where he's supposed to be really traumatized and serious and emotional, but it just comes out completely wrong. This time he nails it. I could feel the emotion. I could feel the destruction, the loss. You could just feel it. He was sitting there in his underwear, sculling this vodka, forcing it down, holding his throat. So it leads me to believe that he did have a problem in the past, and he doesn't even want to drink, but he's forcing it down because of this loss, this shocking, destructive event that happened. It's surreal. He can't believe it. And from there, he goes to get his crossbow from Bill Duke and also builds this amazing two-handed axe, which is kind of a weird pup because people don't really do that in their backyards anymore. You know, you don't have like an anvil and you make big weapons out of nothing, which leads me to believe this is in some sort of world that may not be Earth or in our kind of dimension. Something just seems out of place. And Mandy and Red did discuss planets in bed earlier on, which I found a little bit strange as well. They're talking about their favourite planets. I don't think this is actually set on Earth, or maybe it is in another dimension or something like that at this stage. I just think something's definitely weird, or possibly everyone's on acid, on LSD, so they're all tripping balls, and I guess they're in another dimension in that way anyway. So anyway, Red sets out on his revenge mission. Now first he takes out these 3 Hellraiser bikies. He's not scared of them. He ends up getting caught. He takes out one by shooting him with the crossbow, and then runs him over, and then he crashes his car and finds himself unconscious, and then wakes up in some sort of strange home where the other 2 Hellraiser mutant demons are. So he takes them out as well. Surprisingly easy it seemed, but the thing is, he paid this strange visit to a chemist, this LSD maker, and it was a strange scene because the chemist had his hands in the actual LSD as he's making this massive paper of LSD, and then licks his finger, and that's a lot of drug to put into your body. So he would have been on another planet taking that much LSD, or it didn't affect him. So it was a very strange scene where he lets this tiger go and presumably tells Red where to find the cult. So it's like he has the power of this tiger. It's like the tiger symbolizes some sort of inner beast within Red. But this is one of those symbolic scenes that it's either open to viewer interpretation, or it's just something we need to think a bit more about and discuss in order to get our minds clear on what it actually means. The chemist visit was actually after he took out those demonic Hellraiser bikies. I'm sorry, I might have said that it was before. It was after that. He took out the bikies, then he he finds the chemist, and he only found him because he found like this jar of LSD in the demon's kitchen, and he had a little bit of it, and that's what gave him the vision of where to find the chemist. It's a very weird film, so I'm sorry if I'm explaining it in different segments. I'm doing my best. It's still fresh in my mind. But he visits the chemist after taking out the demons, and he tried like a little bit of the LSD in their kitchen, which is just very unusual. So somehow that drew him to the chemist, or it could just be an acid trip the entire time. Not too sure. So after he goes to the chemist, like I mentioned, the chemist releases this tiger symbolizing like the inner beast of Red, and presumably tells Red where to find the cult. And then we're treated to an awesome chainsaw fight where he takes on one of the cult members, and he takes out all the cult members once he gets there. I'm going to quickly just go through all this, but spares a couple of them. So he spares one girl. It seems like he spares anyone that didn't actually do harm to himself or Mandy. Maybe like the more pure soul. But everyone else that did harm to them in any way, shape or form, they're dead. The scenes are very violent, very gory, and satisfying. Because if someone takes out your loved one like that, you'd probably want the worst to happen to them in the most torturous, painful way possible. So he takes out all of the cult members, including the leader, who ends up begging for his life. And that was an awesome scene. He must have had the power of that inner animal inside of him, that tiger that was released, the inner beast, I'm trying to say. And he just squeezes his head until his eyes just pop out and he just bleeds to death from his face. Beautiful stuff. But symbolically, a little bit confusing now. He's taken out the cult, and then when he departs, he sees Mandy in the passenger seat. So he looks in the passenger seat and makes this really strange kind of grin or smiles at her. So was she with him the whole time in one way, in some sort of maybe spiritual or different consciousness kind of state? It's hard to say because there's so much LSD and drug use in the movie. And there's a weird vibe and a strange sensation during the entire film anyway. You don't really know what's happening at this stage. And then in the background we see two planets in the sky. So it's like an interplanetary place that this is taking place. So it's kind of, I think it's not on planet Earth. Maybe it could be, I don't. It'll be stupid if it's Mars, because obviously you can't sort of breathe in. There's no oxygen on Mars, so it would make sense with all the redness in the movie. It's red. Mars is so red, but I don't think they're even within our universe. They're somewhere out in the multi-universe, and you can see the planets in the background. Unless it also symbolizes that they're both free now. Red's got his revenge. He's reunited with Mandy. Even though he's not dead, something strange is happening there. Maybe they can just communicate in some sort of other consciousness level. Something outside of life and death. Not too sure. It's one of those strange movies where you just don't know. I'm going to look it up and do a bit of reading on it, but it ends strangely. It's interplanetary, so maybe they're just reunited and they've left Earth. So maybe that symbolizes them leaving the Earth, or maybe the whole thing took place on another planet in the multi-universe somewhere. The multiverse, some other universe out there, kind of like that game Dead Man's Sky, where you go to all the different universes. Who knows? You can think about it all you want. We can discuss it down below. I've rambled enough about the spoilers. I hope you haven't watched this far without watching the movie yourself. It's definitely an experience, a trip, and a journey. It's not just a movie. Perfect from start to finish. Go check it out. And for more movie reviews and video game action, don't forget to subscribe to your creepy uncle. This ugly mug right here, Bannick 13.